Be me, 28-year-old Camila, HR director. Wake up every morning with righteous purpose burning in chest. Today's the day I make real change happen. Check my phone for overnight reports from our new workplace monitoring system. 3 incidents logged already. Smile.exe loading. Arrive at office 7:30 a.m. sharp. Walk through open floor plan like I'm surveying my domain. Notice Brad from accounting sitting 2 desks away from Jennifer. Pull out measuring tape from purse. Excuse me, Brad, you're currently 4.2 feet from Jennifer. Company policy clearly states minimum 6-foot distance. Brad looks confused. But I've sat here for 3 years. Not anymore, you haven't. Call emergency meeting with all department heads. PowerPoint presentation ready. Breathable boundaries. Creating safe spaces. Slide 1. Shows cartoon lungs with angry red X. Gentlemen and ladies, we have a breathing problem. Confused murmurs around conference table. Male, respiratory patterns create microaggressions through shared air particles. Marketing director Dave raises hand. Camila, are you saying men can't breathe near women? I'm saying uncontrolled male respiration in feminine proximity creates hostile work environment. Spend next hour explaining new proximity protocols. All male employees must maintain minimum 6-foot distance from female colleagues. Breath holding required when passing women in hallways. Specialized breathing masks available for men who refuse compliance. Installation of air purification systems around women's workstations. Zero tolerance policy for breathing violations. Immediate termination for repeat offenses. Watch their faces during presentation. Some look angry, others bewildered. This is exactly the resistance I expected from patriarchal power structures. They just don't understand how revolutionary this is. Finally, real protection for women in workspace. First week of implementation goes smoothly. Only had to write up Matthew from IT for exhaling too loudly near reception desk. Sarah from accounting thanks me personally. I feel so much safer knowing men can't contaminate my workspace. Validation feels incredible. This is what progress looks like. Month 2 brings first major incident. Kevin from sales literally holding his breath while delivering quarterly reports to female department head turns blue halfway through presentation. Collapses during profit margin analysis. Paramedics called. Write him up anyway for creating disruption. Policy clearly states breath holding is personal responsibility. Start getting complaints from male employees. They claim policy is discriminatory and impossible to follow. Obviously, they're not trying hard enough. Implement breathing schedule system. Men can only breathe during designated 15-minute intervals. Must leave building during breathing breaks to avoid contaminating female colleagues. Genius solution that addresses everyone's concerns. Productivity mysteriously starts declining. Several major clients complain about missed deadlines. Male employees frequently absent from desk during crucial meetings. Some quit without notice. Clearly they weren't committed to creating inclusive environment. Company better off without their toxic masculinity anyway. 6 months later, things escalating. Caught Derek from engineering breathing while walking past women's bathroom. Immediate termination despite his protests about basic human needs. This is insane, Camila. People have to breathe to live. Maybe think about that before choosing to be born male, Derek. Security escorts him out while he's literally hyperventilating. Start receiving formal complaints filed with corporate headquarters. Ignore them, obviously. They don't understand the importance of this work. Revolution always faces resistance from oppressive systems. Schedule company-wide meeting to address misunderstandings. Mandatory attendance for all employees. Prepare. Comprehensive presentation about importance of atmospheric safety. Arrive to conference room full of angry faces, mostly men looking aggressive and entitled as usual. Few women seem uncomfortable too, but probably just internalized misogyny. Begin presentation, but immediately interrupted. Thomas from legal stands up. Camila, Can we talk privately before this meeting continues? Refuse initially, but other department heads insist. Agree to brief sidebar conversation, thinking I can educate him about policy benefits. Thomas leads me to smaller conference room, joined by Michael from HR compliance and James from operations. They sit across from me with serious expressions. Camila, we need to discuss some concerns about current workplace policies. Immediately defensive. If this is about Derek, he violated clear breathing protocols. Thomas pulls out thick folder. We've received 47 formal complaints in past month. 3 employees hospitalized for oxygen deprivation. 2 sexual harassment lawsuits filed against company. 7 clients threatening to terminate contracts. Obviously, they're exaggerating to undermine my authority. Those numbers don't reflect the positive impact on female employees. Michael leans forward. Camila, 5 women have also filed complaints. They say the policy makes them feel uncomfortable and isolated. Impossible. Women love feeling protected from male contamination. James opens his laptop. Can you walk us through your reasoning for these policies? Finally, opportunity to explain revolutionary thinking. Spend 20 minutes detailing atmospheric oppression theory, how male breathing patterns assert dominance through shared oxygen, scientific basis for respiratory contamination concerns. When I finish, long silence. Thomas looks genuinely confused. Camila, where did you develop these theories? Through careful observation and research into workplace dynamics. What specific research? Suddenly feel less confident. Most of my conclusions came from personal observations and feelings. Michael asks different approach. Can you help me understand something personal? My daughter just started kindergarten. Should I be concerned about her breathing around male classmates? Deflect with workplace-specific arguments. That's different. We're talking about professional environment. But breathing is breathing, right? Uncomfortable with direction of questioning. Adult male respiratory patterns carry different implications. James jumps in. What implications specifically? Starting to feel attacked by their constant questions. Why can't they just accept the policy benefits? Thomas tries different approach. Camila, I want to share something with you. Tells story about his son Matthew, who has severe asthma. How holding breath for extended periods could literally kill him. Describes watching his child struggle for air during attacks. Something about his tone makes me actually listen. When Derek collapsed during that presentation, it reminded me of Matthew during bad asthma episode. The terror in his eyes, gasping for air. I kept thinking about how afraid he must have been. Never considered breathing policies from medical perspective. Feel slight uncertainty creeping in. Michael shares his own story, talks about working construction before college, how physical labor alongside women never involved breathing restrictions, describes mutual respect and teamwork in challenging environment. Some of my best professional relationships were with female colleagues. We trusted each other with our lives, literally. James talks about his military service, mixed gender units operating in life or death situations. When you're in combat, you don't think about who's breathing what. You think about keeping everyone alive. The person next to you might save your life regardless of gender. Starting to feel defensive again, but also confused. That's different. Those are extreme circumstances. This is about everyday workplace comfort and safety. Thomas nods thoughtfully. You're right. Those are extreme circumstances. But what about normal circumstances? Like when my wife and I work together in our garden. Should I hold my breath when we're planting flowers? Question catches me off guard. Never thought about breathing policies in personal relationships. That's between you and your wife. But you work with your wife, right? Your colleagues in running your household. Logic feels twisted but can't identify the flaw. Why does this feel different from workplace policies? Michael asks about my own relationships. Do you have male friends, Camila? Some, yes, but that's personal, not professional. Do you ask them to hold their breath around you? Of course not. That would be ridiculous, but can't explain why workplace should be different. James pulls out his phone, shows picture of his team from last project. Mixed group of men and women working closely together, all smiling, clearly comfortable with each other. This was taken during 16-hour workday solving critical system failure. Everyone breathing in same room for entire day. Most productive and collaborative work I've ever done. Stare at photo longer than intended. Something about their genuine smiles bothers me. They look happy. When was the last time I saw employees looking happy at work? Push down uncomfortable thoughts. Anecdotal evidence doesn't override systemic concerns. Thomas leans back in chair. Camila, can I ask about your own work experience? Before implementing these policies, did you feel unsafe because of male breathing? Think back to previous jobs. Honestly, can't remember specific incidents involving respiratory threats. It's not about specific incidents. It's about cumulative atmospheric pressure. What does that feel like exactly? Struggle to articulate specific feelings. Mostly remember feeling generally uncomfortable around certain male colleagues. But was that really about breathing? Maybe about communication styles or personality conflicts? It's subtle but persistent sense of contamination. Michael asks follow-up. When did you first notice these feelings? Try to remember earliest awareness of breathing-related discomfort. Realizing most memories involve feeling dismissed or unheard in meetings, not necessarily connected to anyone's respiratory patterns. It developed gradually over time. James suggests different perspective. What if those feelings were about communication rather than breathing? Like being interrupted or having ideas dismissed. Those are real workplace problems that deserve solutions. Feel defensive surge. You're minimizing the atmospheric component, but privately wondering if there's something to his suggestion. Remember feeling frustrated when Derek interrupted my presentations, but he also interrupted everyone, regardless of gender. Was my response really about his breathing or about feeling unheard? Quickly dismiss these doubts. Can't start questioning entire theoretical foundation. Thomas changes subject again. Can you help me understand the policy implementation process? Did you consult with other HR professionals or medical experts about respiratory health? Realize I developed policies mostly independently, based on personal observations and feelings. Sometimes revolutionary ideas require independent thinking. But what about unintended consequences? Michael shows chart of productivity decline since policy implementation. Employee satisfaction scores hitting record lows. Several department heads requesting transfers. These numbers suggest something isn't working. Feel anger rising again. Change is always difficult for established power structures. Of course, there's resistance to progressive policies. That doesn't mean we should abandon important protections, but looking at data makes me uncomfortable. Numbers don't usually lie. James asks direct question. Camila, do you think Derek deserved to lose his job for breathing while walking? Immediate defensive response. He violated clearly stated policy. Rules apply equally to everyone. But thinking about Derek's face when security escorted him out, he looked genuinely confused and hurt, not entitled or aggressive. Derek has 3 kids and a mortgage, Thomas says quietly. His wife is dealing with cancer treatment. He was walking to bathroom, not threatening anyone. Information hits differently than expected. Never considered personal circumstances of policy violations, suddenly feeling overwhelmed. I didn't know about his wife. That doesn't change the policy violation, but voice lacks previous conviction, starting to see Derek as person rather than abstract policy violator. Makes me deeply uncomfortable. Michael suggests short break, Step outside conference room into hallway. Notice immediate difference in workplace atmosphere. Male employees clustered near exit doors during breathing breaks. Female employees sitting alone at desks. Nobody interacting naturally with anyone. Remember, this floor used to buzz with collaborative energy. Cross-departmental teams working together. Spontaneous brainstorming sessions. Now everything feels segregated and tense. Women seem as isolated as men. This wasn't supposed to happen. Return to room feeling less certain. Thomas continues conversation gently. What outcome were you hoping for with these policies? Protection for female employees, obviously. Are women safer now? Think about Sarah from accounting thanking me initially, but haven't heard from her lately. Yes, they're protected from atmospheric contamination. But are they happier? Uncomfortable question. Happiness isn't the primary goal. Safety is. James pulls out employee survey results. Women reporting increased isolation and workplace tension, several requesting. Transfers to different departments. These are the women we're supposed to be protecting. Stare at survey data longer than intended. Comments about feeling separated from colleagues. Unable to form normal working relationships. Workplace feels hostile and unnatural. This contradicts everything I expected. Maybe they need time to adjust to safer environment. Michael shares another personal story, talks about his grandmother who worked in factory during World War II, alongside men in dangerous conditions. She always said gender didn't matter when you had important work to do. People were just people trying to do their jobs well. Some were jerks, some were wonderful, regardless of gender. Something about his grandmother's perspective resonates. Remember my own grandmother's stories about workplace cooperation. She never mentioned breathing-related concerns, focused on mutual respect and professional competence. That was a different era with different awareness. But, feeling less convinced by my own arguments, Thomas asks thoughtful question. What does an ideal workplace look like to you? Describe vision of female employees feeling safe and valued, able to contribute without atmospheric interference. Men understanding impact of their respiratory presence. Everyone following clear protocols for interaction. That sounds lonely, James observes, like people working in separate bubbles. Is connection not part of workplace satisfaction? Never considered connection as positive workplace element, always focused on protection and separation. Michael suggests thought experiment. Imagine you're working on critical project with tight deadline. You need expertise from one colleague to solve technical problem, but policy requires him to hold breath during consultation. How does that serve the project or your professional development? Realize I've never worked closely with male colleagues since implementing policies. Avoided collaborative projects requiring cross-gender teamwork. Assumed this protected me from various forms of contamination, but also meant missing learning opportunities and professional growth. Feel tears starting unexpectedly. I just wanted women to feel safe. Voice cracking slightly. I wanted to create environment where we weren't constantly under threat. Surprised by emotional response. Usually maintain professional composure during policy discussions. Thomas hands me tissues. That's a worthy goal, Camilla. But maybe we can find ways to achieve safety without eliminating basic human interaction. What if safety comes through mutual respect rather than physical separation? Concept feels foreign but intriguing. James shares story about his daughter's science teacher, man who inspired her passion for chemistry. She wouldn't have discovered her career path without his mentorship. Should she miss those opportunities because he's male? Or should we focus on ensuring mentorship remains appropriate and professional, thinking about my own career development? Some of my most valuable learning came from male supervisors, professors who challenged my thinking, colleagues who shared different perspectives. Would breathing restrictions have improved or hindered those relationships? Michael returns to practical concerns. Derek's termination is being reviewed by corporate. They're questioning the legal basis for breathing-related firings. We might face wrongful termination lawsuit. Company could be held liable for discriminatory practices. Reality of legal consequences hitting harder than expected. The policy applies equally to all male employees. That's not discrimination. Actually, it might be gender-based discrimination. Thomas explains legal precedents. Policies targeting specific gender characteristics could violate employment law. Feeling walls closing in, months of careful policy development potentially illegal, professional reputation at stake. But women deserve protection from atmospheric contamination. Hearing own words, they sound less scientific than before, more like personal preference than objective policy. James asks crucial question. Can you point to specific research supporting atmospheric contamination theory or studies showing respiratory-based workplace harassment? Realize most of my theoretical foundation came from personal feelings, extrapolated into company-wide policies without scientific backing. The research is emerging. Emerging from where? Pressure building in chest. From careful observation of workplace dynamics. What specific observations? Struggle to identify concrete examples. Mostly remember feeling uncomfortable in various situations. Assumed discomfort came from breathing-related factors. Thomas suggests different interpretation. What if discomfort came from communication style differences? Or personality conflicts that had nothing to do with gender? Or normal workplace stress that everyone experiences? Possibilities I never considered. Always attributed negative feelings to gender-specific atmospheric issues. Michael shows me exit interview data from departed male employees, quotes about feeling dehumanized and treated like contamination source, unable to function normally in professional environment. Policies created hostile work environment. Reading their words triggers unexpected empathy. Remember Derek's confused expression during termination. He wasn't angry or entitled, just genuinely bewildered by losing job for basic biological function. But policy violations require consistent enforcement. Voice sounds weaker than intended, starting to question entire enforcement framework. James asks about policy development process. Did you pilot test these policies in smaller group? Or gradually implement with feedback periods? Realize I pushed through changes quickly, assumed resistance meant policies were working, never considered they might be fundamentally flawed. Revolutionary changes require bold implementation, but remembering employee responses differently now. Maybe confusion and distress weren't signs of patriarchal resistance. Maybe they indicated genuinely problematic policies. Possibility makes me nauseous. Thomas shifts to personal approach again. Camila, you're clearly passionate about workplace equity. That's admirable and important. But what if there are better ways to achieve those goals? Ways that bring people together rather than separating them? Feeling emotional walls starting to crack. I don't know other ways. Admitting uncertainty feels terrifying. Everything I read suggested atmospheric separation was necessary for safety. What did you read specifically? Can't cite specific sources. Mostly personal blogs and opinion pieces that confirmed my existing feelings. Michael asks about my personal relationships again. Do you enjoy spending time with male friends and family? Do you feel threatened by their breathing in social settings? Of course not. That would be absurd. Why is workplace different? Struggle to articulate distinction that previously seemed obvious. Realizing workplace policies created environment I wouldn't tolerate in personal life. Would never ask male friends to hold breath during conversations. Would find such requests bizarre and offensive. Why did professional setting justify different standards? Tears flowing more freely now. I thought I was protecting people. I thought I was creating safer workplace. But everyone seems miserable and isolated. James hands me more tissues. Sometimes good intentions can lead to harmful outcomes. Thomas asks gentle question. What would you do differently if you could start over? Overwhelming question. Months of policy development and implementation. Careers disrupted, trust destroyed. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe start by talking to employees, Michael suggests. Ask what would make them feel safer and more valued. Include everyone in conversation, not just women. Find solutions that build community rather than dividing it. Concept of inclusive solution finding feels revolutionary. Spent so much energy creating protective barriers, never considered collaborative approach to workplace improvement. What if they just want to maintain status quo? What if they give real insight into building better workplace for everyone? James shares final story, talks about team building exercise where employees worked together on challenging project. Mixed gender groups collaborating intensively. Best workplace culture I ever experienced. People supported each other regardless of gender, focused on shared goals rather than perceived differences. Vision of collaborative workplace appeals to me, but conflicts with everything I thought I knew about gender dynamics. How do you ensure women's safety in that environment? Through clear communication, mutual respect, and addressing specific problems as they arise, not through blanket restrictions on basic human functions. Spending next hour discussing alternative approaches. Anti-harassment training focused on behavior rather than biology. Conflict resolution systems addressing actual problems. Mentorship programs promoting positive cross-gender professional relationships. Policies protecting everyone from genuine workplace harassment. Gradually understanding difference between protection and isolation, between safety and segregation. My policies created workplace where nobody could form authentic professional relationships, especially harmed the women I intended to protect. Feeling overwhelming shame about Derek's termination. Man lost job for walking to bathroom. Family struggling with medical bills didn't deserve additional financial stress. Can we rehire Derek? That depends on corporate review and his willingness to return. Realize I need to personally apologize to every affected employee, acknowledge policy failures, and commit to collaborative solutions. Process feels terrifying, but necessary. What if they don't forgive me? Focus on making things right rather than on personal comfort. Thomas suggests starting with company-wide meeting. Acknowledge policy problems publicly. Invite employee input on creating better workplace culture. Demonstrate commitment to inclusive rather than divisive solutions. Hands shaking at thought of public admission of failure. I was so convinced I was right, sobbing now without restraint. I thought I was protecting women from real threats. I made everyone miserable and destroyed workplace culture. How did I get everything so wrong? Michael explains how good intentions can create blind spots. Passion for justice sometimes leads to extreme solutions. Importance of testing theories against reality. Seeking input from affected communities before implementing major changes. James emphasizes learning opportunity. Everyone makes mistakes in leadership roles. What matters is how you respond when you realize problems. This could become positive turning point for company culture. Possibility of redemption feels both hopeful and overwhelming. Spending next 2 hours planning policy reversal, immediate suspension of breathing restrictions, reinstatement process for terminated employees, comprehensive review of all gender-related workplace policies, employee feedback sessions to develop collaborative solutions, drafting personal apology letters to each affected employee, especially Derek and his family, acknowledging specific harms caused by my policies, committing to better decision-making processes going forward. Words feel inadequate, but necessary. Planning company-wide presentation for next week. Will publicly acknowledge policy failures, explain learning process and commitment to inclusive solutions, invite employee participation in developing better workplace culture. Terrified but determined to make amends, walking back to my office feeling emotionally drained. Notice employees still maintaining artificial distances, women working in isolation from male colleagues, atmosphere of tension and separation. My policies created workplace prison for everyone. Derek's empty desk particularly painful to see. Family photo still sitting there from when he was escorted out. His kids smiling up from frame. Wife who's battling cancer. Consequences of my rigid policy enforcement suddenly very real. Sit at desk drafting resignation letter. Maybe best thing for company is my departure. Allow someone else to rebuild workplace culture. But then remember Thomas's words about learning from mistakes. Perhaps staying and fixing problems shows more integrity. Decide to stay and work on solutions, even if process is uncomfortable and humbling, even if employees don't immediately forgive policy mistakes. Rebuilding trust requires presence and consistent effort. End of day, walking through office one final time, imagining workplace where people collaborate naturally, where protection comes through mutual respect rather than physical barriers, where women feel valued for contributions rather than separated for safety. Tomorrow will begin long process of rebuilding, starting with genuine apologies and policy reversals, continuing with collaborative development of inclusive workplace culture, learning to lead through connection rather than division. Realize this experience taught me difference between equity and separation, between protection and isolation, between good intentions and effective solutions. Most importantly, between listening to my own assumptions and listening to actual people. Maybe Derek will give company another chance. Maybe workplace culture can become stronger through this process. Maybe learning from mistakes makes better leader than never making them. Tomorrow's meeting will determine if redemption is possible. Driving home. Thinking about conversation with grandmother tonight. Want to hear her stories about workplace cooperation again. Understand how she navigated professional relationships without breathing restrictions. Learn from her experience building mutual respect across gender lines. Tonight, we'll prepare for tomorrow's reckoning. Acknowledging failures publicly and committing to collaborative solutions. Beginning long journey toward authentic workplace equity, based on connection rather than separation, inclusion rather than isolation, respect for everyone's humanity. Be me, 47-year-old proud feminist. Have spent the last 2 decades building my career as a diversity consultant while raising my daughter Emma as a single mother by choice. Used a sperm donor because I refused to let any man have power over my reproductive choices. Raised Emma to be a strong, independent woman who doesn't need men for anything. Taught her from age 3 about the wage gap, glass ceiling, and toxic masculinity. I refused to let her play with dolls or anything pink because gender is a social construct. Made sure she understood that traditional femininity is internalized misogyny. Today, Emma is 17 and about to start applying for colleges. Sitting at the kitchen table with my fair trade organic coffee reviewing her college essay. She wrote about wanting to study business and entrepreneurship. Feel so proud that I raised a girl who wants to compete in the male-dominated business world. Start reading through her essay with my red pen ready. Get to the 3rd paragraph, and my blood runs cold. She wrote about how she wants to build a life that allows for both career success and a traditional family. She actually used the words traditional family. My hands start shaking as I keep reading. She talks about wanting to get married someday and maybe even take her husband's last name. Says she wants to have kids while she's young and be present for them. Mentions that she admires women who successfully balance career and motherhood without sacrificing either. The words blur on the page as rage builds inside me. This cannot be happening. Not after everything I taught her. Not after I spent 17 years deprogramming her from patriarchal expectations. Close the laptop and take several deep breaths. Try to center myself like my therapist taught me. Remind myself that Emma is just confused. Probably the influence of social media and the tradwife aesthetic that's been going around. Decide to have a calm, rational conversation with her about this. Call her downstairs from her room. She comes down looking at her phone, probably texting her boyfriend. That boyfriend is another problem I need to deal with. His name is Marcus and he's one of those quiet, stoic types. Works at an auto shop while taking community college classes. Has never once engaged with me when I try to discuss feminist theory. Just nods and says, "Yes, ma'am," like I'm some kind of authority figure to be humored. Hate how he holds doors open and insists on paying for dates. Tried to explain to Emma that he's exhibiting benevolent sexism, but she just rolled her eyes. She sits down across from me, still looking at her phone. Tell her to put it away because we need to talk. She sighs, that teenager sigh that makes my eye twitch but complies. Start explaining that I have some concerns about her college essay. Use my professional diversity consultant voice. Calm, measured, educational. Tell her that some of her goals seem to reinforce patriarchal structures. She looks at me with this blank expression. Ask her where this sudden interest in traditional marriage came from. She says it's not sudden, she's always wanted to get married. Feel my carefully constructed calm starting to crack. Explain that marriage is a patriarchal institution designed to transfer ownership of women from fathers to husbands. She asks why I'm so obsessed with what she does with her life. Obsessed. I'm not obsessed, I'm concerned. I'm her mother, and it's my job to make sure she doesn't make choices that will oppress her. She says that her choices are her own, and that I should respect them. The audacity. After everything I've done for her. Raise my voice slightly and tell her that she's been brainwashed by the patriarchy. She stands up and says she's going to Marcus's house. Tell her absolutely not. We're not done with this conversation. She looks me dead in the eye and says that this is exactly why she doesn't want to end up like me. The words hit like a physical blow. Doesn't want to end up like me. Me, who sacrificed everything to give her opportunities. Me, who built a successful career fighting oppression. Me, who showed her that women don't need men. She keeps talking and I can barely process it through the ringing in my ears. Says she's watched me for 17 years being angry and miserable. Says I have no meaningful relationships and push everyone away. Says every family gathering ends with me lecturing someone about their internalized misogyny. Says even my own sister stopped inviting me to things. Says she wants a life filled with love and partnership, not constant anger and fighting. Says Marcus treats her with respect and kindness, and that's what she wants in a relationship. Says she's tired of being told that everything she naturally enjoys is oppression. The tears are streaming down my face now, but they're angry tears. Tell her that she's throwing away everything I taught her. Tell her that women like me fought so she could have choices. She says yes, choices, including the choice to want different things than what I want. She grabs her keys and walks out. Sit there in my kitchen alone with her college essay still on the screen. Stare at the words until they stop making sense. How did this happen? Spend the next few hours spiraling. Pour myself a glass of wine. Then another. Look around my pristine modern apartment. Everything decorated in grays and whites and clean lines. No clutter, no mess, no compromise. Exactly how I like it. No man ever got to come in here and impose his preferences. This is my space. My kingdom. So why does it suddenly feel so empty? Check my phone, hoping maybe Emma texted. Nothing. Scroll through my contacts. Hundreds of names from professional circles. Colleagues, conference connections, other diversity consultants. Realize I can't think of a single person I could call right now. Not one friend who would just listen without it becoming a political discussion. Think about calling my sister, but remember we haven't really talked since Thanksgiving. That wasn't my fault though. She was the one who got defensive when I pointed out that her letting her husband carve the turkey reinforced gender roles. I was just trying to help her see her own oppression. Pour another glass of wine. Start thinking about Marcus. That smug bastard with his quiet confidence. Probably put all these ideas in Emma's head. She was fine until she started dating him. Remember the first time she brought him home 6 months ago. He showed up in clean work pants and a button-up shirt. Shook my hand with his calloused mechanic hands. Called me ma'am. Asked polite questions about my work. When I started explaining critical theory and intersectional feminism, his eyes didn't glaze over like most men. He just listened and nodded. Then said something that should have been a red flag. He said that he thinks everyone should be free to live according to their own values as long as they're not hurting anyone. Classic libertarian deflection. Tried to explain that personal choices exist within systemic structures. He just smiled and said, "That's an interesting perspective." Interesting perspective. Like my decades of education and activism were just an opinion to be considered and dismissed. Should have forbidden Emma from seeing him right then. But I didn't want to be controlling. Didn't want to be like the patriarchal fathers who police their daughters' relationships. So I let it continue. Watched as Emma started changing. She started wearing more dresses and skirts. Started cooking meals from scratch instead of just eating vegan takeout. Started talking about Marcus's family and their Sunday dinners. Started seeming happy. That kind of happiness always made me nervous. The compliant, gentle happiness of women who don't know they're oppressed. Finish the bottle of wine and open another. Start scrolling through social media on my laptop. All my posts about feminist theory and calling out misogyny. Hundreds of followers, mostly other feminists. Lots of likes and shares within the echo chamber. Click over to Emma's private Instagram that I know the password to. Yes, I monitor it. That's called being a responsible parent. See photos of her and Marcus. Her smiling bigger than I've ever seen. Comments from her friends about how cute they are. Comments about couple goals and relationship envy. Find a photo from last week at some kind of family gathering. Marcus's family, presumably. Emma is sitting at a big table crowded with people. Multiple generations, all squeezed together. She's holding a baby, probably a niece or nephew of Marcus's, looking at the camera with pure joy. The caption says something about Sunday dinners and feeling like family. Feel sick to my stomach. This is exactly what I was afraid of. She's being absorbed into traditional family structures. Soon she'll be barefoot and pregnant, giving up all her potential. Spend the rest of the night alternating between rage and despair. Finally pass out on the couch around 3 a.m. Wake up to my phone ringing at 9. It's my mother. Consider not answering, but she'll just keep calling. Pick up and immediately get a headache from her voice. She's calling to ask if I'm coming to my cousin's baby shower next month. Tell her I don't know. I'm very busy with work. She sighs that disappointed mother sigh I've been hearing my whole life. Says it would be nice if I made time for family occasionally. Bite back what I want to say about how these gender reveal parties and baby showers are just capitalist celebrations of the nuclear family structure. Instead, just say, I'll check my calendar. She asks how Emma is doing. Feel my throat tighten. Say she's fine. Mother asks if something's wrong. Find myself actually wanting to talk to her. Start to tell her about the fight with Emma. She listens quietly as I explain about the college essay and the traditional values. When I finish, there's a long pause. Then she says maybe I should consider that Emma is just being honest about what she wants. Cannot believe what I'm hearing. My own mother. Tell her that Emma has been influenced by patriarchal expectations. My mother says maybe Emma has just seen me isolate myself for years and wants something different. The betrayal cuts deep. Tell my mother I have to go. She tries to say something else, but I hang up. Sit there stewing in anger. Everyone is against me. My own daughter, my own mother. They don't understand. They've all been brainwashed. Decide I need to do something productive. Throw myself into work. Spend the next week barely seeing Emma. She comes and goes, staying at school late or going to Marcus's. We exchange maybe 10 words total. Bury myself in consulting projects and writing blog posts. Write a particularly scathing piece about how the patriarchy uses romance to trap women. Gets shared widely in my circles. Dozens of comments from other feminists agreeing. Feel validated. See, these people understand. 2 weeks after the fight, Emma comes home with Marcus. They ask if they can talk to me. Immediately on guard. Sit down in the living room while they sit together on the couch. He's holding her hand. Want to scream. Emma does most of the talking while Marcus sits there being supportive. She says she's decided to take a gap year after high school. My heart drops. Gap years are what girls take and then never go back to school. Gap years lead to getting stuck in dead-end jobs or becoming dependent on men. Start to protest, but she holds up her hand. Says she's going to work and save money. Says Marcus has been teaching her about financial planning and investing. Of course he has. Says she wants to figure out what she really wants before committing to a degree. Tell her this is a terrible idea. Tell her she needs to go to college right away or she'll lose momentum. Tell her I didn't raise her to be some dropout. Marcus speaks for the first time. His voice is calm and even. Says that Emma is one of the smartest people he knows, and whatever she decides to do, she'll succeed. Says he supports her, taking time to make sure she's making the right choice. Says college is expensive and going before. You're sure just leads to debt and regret. Want to argue, but he's not being aggressive or controlling. He's being supportive in exactly the way that's hardest to argue against. Emma chimes in that this is her decision. Says she's still going to apply to schools, but defer for a year. Says she's already got a job lined up at a local business doing administrative work. Asks if I can support her choice. Want to scream no. Want to lecture her about how this is self-sabotage. But looking at her face, she seems so certain. More certain than I've ever seen her. Hear myself say that it's her life. Even though inside I'm screaming. She smiles and thanks me. They leave shortly after. Watch through the window as Marcus opens her car door for her. That stupid gesture of benevolent sexism. But Emma's laughing at something he said. Looking at him like he hung the moon. Slammed the curtains shut. Over the next few months, I watch Emma build this life I don't recognize. She works her administrative job and apparently loves it. Starts taking online courses in bookkeeping and business management. Spends every weekend with Marcus and his family. Comes home talking about helping his mom cook or playing with his nieces and nephews. Sometimes Marcus comes over for dinner at Emma's insistence. Sitting across the table from him is torture. Try to engage him in debate about social issues. He never takes the bait. Just listens and asks thoughtful questions. Questions that somehow make me feel like I'm being unreasonable. Like when I bring up the gender wage gap. He asks about controlling for hours worked and career choices. Classic MRA talking point. But he says it so genuinely, like he really wants to understand. When I explain that those factors are themselves products of patriarchal conditioning, he nods and says, "That's an interesting point. Everyone should be free to pursue whatever career they want." Then asks Emma about her work projects, seamlessly deflecting. It's infuriating. He never argues, never gets defensive. Just maintains this calm, reasonable demeanor. Like he's operating from some centered place I can't access. Start noticing things about him despite myself. How he really listens when Emma talks. How he asks her opinion on things and actually considers her input. How he talks about his own goals and plans with clarity. He's taking classes to become a licensed contractor. Wants to start his own business in 5 years. Has a detailed plan and savings targets. Never asks Emma to be part of his plans, but includes her when she volunteers ideas. It's like watching some kind of partnership I don't have a framework for. Not the oppressive patriarchal relationship I expected, but also not the independent equality I always advocated for. Something else entirely. Something that seems to make Emma genuinely happy. And that happiness starts to feel like an accusation. One Sunday, Emma asks if I want to come to dinner at Marcus's parents' house. Immediately say no. She looks disappointed, but not surprised. Asks why I never want to be part of her life. Tell her that's ridiculous. I'm very involved in her life. She says I'm involved in criticizing her life, not participating in it. Says I've never once asked about her job or her relationship without following up with judgment. Says she invited me because his family asks about me. Says they want to meet me and include me. Feel something crack inside my chest. Strangers want to include me more than my own family does. But I can't go to some traditional family dinner. Can't sit there and pretend that everything about it isn't problematic. Tell Emma I have work to do. She looks at me with something like pity, says okay, and leaves. Spend that Sunday alone like every Sunday. Try to work but can't focus. Keep imagining Emma at that dinner table, surrounded by family and laughter. Everything I taught her to be suspicious of. Everything I avoided in building my own life. Start thinking about my own choices. The sperm donor baby plan that seemed so empowering at the time. Raising Emma alone to prove women don't need partners. But what did that prove exactly? That I could do it alone. But did it ever occur to me that maybe I didn't have to? No, stop. This is the kind of thinking that leads to betraying the movement. I made the right choices. Chose liberation over oppression. Chose independence over dependence. So why does my independent life feel so hollow? Months continue passing. Emma turns 18. I throw her a small party, just a few of her friends. Marcus comes with flowers. His whole family sends cards and gifts even though they've never met me. His mother apparently made Emma a quilt. A whole quilt, hand-stitched. Emma cries when she opens it. I gave her a laptop for college. Practical, expensive, useful. But she doesn't cry over it. Watch her hug Marcus and thank him for the framed photo of them. It's from their first date, she tells her friends. He kept it all this time and had it professionally framed. Her friends all swoon. I feel like I'm watching something from another planet. This performance of traditional romance. But Emma's joy seems genuine. After the party, Marcus helps clean up without being asked. Emma is walking friends out. Just the two of us in the kitchen. He's washing dishes. Tell him he doesn't have to do that. He says, it's no problem, happy to help. Find myself just standing there watching him. Then hear myself asking why. He turns, confused. Ask him why he's with Emma, what he wants from her. He dries his hands and looks at me directly. Says he loves her. Says she's brilliant and funny and kind. Says she makes him want to be better. Says he wants to build a life with her where they both thrive. Tell him that's a nice speech. Ask what happens when she has career opportunities. Ask if he'll hold her back to have babies and keep his house. He doesn't look offended. Just says that whatever Emma wants to do, he'll support. Says if she wants a high-powered career, great. If she wants kids and to work part-time, great. If she wants to constantly change her mind, that's fine too. Says his job is to be her partner, not her owner or her dependent. Feel my carefully constructed arguments crumbling. Ask him why he never argues with me. He smiles slightly. Says there's no point in arguing with someone who's already decided you're the enemy. Says he's not trying to prove anything to me. Says he just wants Emma to be happy. And if having a relationship with me makes Emma happy, he'll be respectful and kind. But he's not going to debate his worth or justify his existence. Says he knows who he is and what he brings to the table. Doesn't need my validation. The quiet confidence in his voice is crushing. Realize he's been in control of every interaction we've ever had, not through aggression or dominance, through simply refusing to play the game I wanted to play. I wanted him to be the enemy, wanted him to be controlling or dismissive or threatened by strong women. But he's none of those things. He's just a man who knows what he wants and pursues it calmly. A man going his own way regardless of my opinions. And somehow that's worse than if he'd been the villain I expected. Emma comes back, and he seamlessly returns to cleaning. They work together with easy coordination. Passing dishes, sharing space, laughing. I'm standing in my own kitchen feeling like an outsider. They finish and say goodnight. Emma hugs me briefly. The hug feels obligatory. After they leave, I pour wine again. Becoming a habit. Sit in my perfect minimalist living room. Think about that quilt Marcus's mother made. The time and care that went into it. Made for a girl she's welcomed into her family. While I can't even hug my own daughter without it feeling forced. Start crying and can't stop. Ugly crying alone with my wine. This isn't how it was supposed to be. I did everything right according to the feminist framework. Rejected traditional roles. Built a career. Raised a daughter to be independent. So why am I alone and miserable? Why does my daughter want nothing to do with me? Why does some mechanic's family treat her better than I do? Drink until I pass out again. Wake up the next morning with the worst hangover. Call in sick to work. Spend the day in bed, scrolling through old photos of Emma. Baby pictures, first day of school, science fairs. I was there for all of it. But in every photo I look stressed. Even when smiling, there's tension around my eyes. Emma's smile got bigger as she got older, especially in recent photos. The ones with Marcus. Check my email and see a message from Emma. She's letting me know she got accepted to 3 universities, all offering partial scholarships. She's still planning to defer but wanted me to know. Feel a surge of pride. My daughter the scholar. Start to write back something about how proud I am. Then delete it. Write something about making sure she doesn't give up on her education. Delete that too. Finally just write congratulations. Hit send. Feels inadequate. Everything I do with her feels inadequate now. Another month passes. Barely see Emma. She's busy with work, with Marcus, with his family. My work is busy too. Conducting diversity trainings at various corporations. Teaching people to recognize their bias and privilege. Getting paid well to lecture rooms full of people who nod along. Then go back to their lives unchanged. Start to wonder what I'm actually accomplishing. How many minds have I actually changed? How many people have I actually helped? Or am I just performing for an audience that already agrees? Preaching to the choir while alienating everyone else. Get an email from the organizer of a conference I spoke at last year, asking if I'm interested in speaking again. The topic would be raising feminist daughters in a patriarchal world. The irony is too much. Decline the invitation. Can't get up on stage and talk about successfully raising a feminist daughter. Not when my daughter explicitly said she doesn't want to end up like me. That night Emma comes home early. Asks if we can talk. My stomach drops. This is it. She's moving out. Moving in with Marcus, probably. Sit down and brace myself. She sits across from me, nervous. Says she wants to fix our relationship. Says she loves me but can't keep living in this tension. Says she needs me to accept her choices even if I don't agree with them. Says she needs me to stop treating Marcus like the enemy. Says she needs me to be her mom, not her political advisor. Feel tears forming. Ask her why she doesn't want to end up like me. My voice cracks on the question. She looks sad. Says because I seem so unhappy. Says I've built walls around myself, made of ideology. Says I treat every relationship like a power struggle. Says I can't just enjoy things without analyzing them to death. Says she watched me push away every person who tried to get close. Family, friends, even her. Says she wants a life full of love and connection. Says that doesn't make her weak or oppressed. Says feminism should be about choice, including choosing partnership. Every word lands like a punch. Because she's right. About all of it. Start crying, really crying. Not angry tears, but grief. Grieving the relationship we could have had. Grieving the life I could have built. Grieving the person I might have been without all this armor. Emma comes and sits next to me. Puts her arm around me. First real affection between us in months. Tell her I'm sorry. Sorry for being so rigid. Sorry for pushing her away. Sorry for making everything a political statement. Sorry for being so afraid of her being hurt that I hurt her myself. She cries too. Says she knows I was trying to protect her. Says she appreciates everything I sacrificed. Says she just wants to be allowed to choose differently. We sit there crying together. Feel something shift between us. Still don't agree with all her choices. Still think traditional marriage is problematic. Still worry about her giving up opportunities. But I'm tired of fighting. Tired of being right and alone. Ask her to tell me about Marcus. Really tell me, not defend him. What does she love about him? She lights up. Talks about how he makes her laugh. How he challenges her to think differently. How he's ambitious but grounded. How his family welcomed her completely. How he listens to her dreams and helps her plan for them. How safe she feels with him. Listen without interrupting, without correcting or analyzing. Just listen to my daughter talk about being in love. When she finishes, she looks at me hopefully, asks if she really wants me to meet his family. She says yes, so much. Agree to come to Sunday dinner next week. She hugs me tight. I haven't been hugged like this in years. That Sunday, I stand outside Marcus's parents' house. Modest suburban home, well-maintained. Can hear noise inside, laughter and voices. Want to run. I want to go back to my safe apartment, but Emma is waiting for me. Ring the doorbell. Marcus opens it, smiles genuinely, welcomes me in. The house is chaos. Kids running around. Multiple conversations happening. Food smells everywhere. Overwhelming after my quiet, controlled life. Marcus's mother comes over immediately. Hugs me like we're old friends. Thanks me for coming. Thanks me for raising such a wonderful daughter. Introduces me to everyone. His father, his siblings, nieces, and nephews. They all greet me warmly. No judgment about being the single feminist mom. No political litmus tests. Just welcome. Dinner is loud and messy. Food passed family style. People talking over each other. Kids needing things. Exactly the kind of traditional family structure I've criticized for decades. But watching Emma in the middle of it. Helping with the kids. Laughing at inside jokes. Belonging. She looks happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Marcus's mother asks about my work. Brace myself to be judged. But she's genuinely curious. Asks thoughtful questions. Tells me her own story of working while raising kids. The compromises and struggles. Doesn't frame it as oppression or empowerment. Just her life, her choices. Find myself actually enjoying the conversation. After dinner, Marcus asks if I want to see his workshop. He's been fixing up the garage. Follow him out. It's immaculate. Tools organized, projects labeled. He shows me the chair he's building. Explains the joinery, the wood selection. Talks about it with quiet pride. Not showing off. Just sharing something he loves. Tell him it's beautiful. He thanks me. Then turns and looks at me directly. Says he knows I don't approve of him. Says he understands why. He says if he had a daughter, he'd be protective too. Says all he can tell me is that he loves Emma. Will do everything in his power to support her and make her happy. But he can't live his life trying to prove himself to me. Has to live according to his own values. Says he hopes someday I'll see that his values and mine might not be as different as I think. We both want Emma to thrive. Just have different ideas about what that looks like. Says the door is always open if I want to be part of their lives. But it has to be on terms that respect everyone. Not just me. Standing there in his workshop. Looking at this man who's so sure of himself. Who's built a life on his own terms. Who's walking his own path regardless of my approval. Realize he's done what I always claimed to be doing, but actually achieved it. Living authentically. Not performing for anyone. Not trying to prove anything. Just being. Tell him I'll try. Try to be less judgmental. Try to accept Emma's choices. Try to be part of this family if they'll have me. He smiles and says that's all anyone can ask. We go back inside. Emma looks relieved to see us talking. The rest of the evening I just observe. Watch how this family operates. The traditional gender roles I'd normally critique are there, but also flexibility and respect. Marcus's father does dishes. His mother talks about her career. The siblings share childcare. It's not the patriarchal nightmare I expected, just people doing their best. When I leave, Marcus's mother hugs me again. Says I'm welcome anytime. Means it. Drive home in silence. My apartment feels especially empty. Sit in the dark thinking about all my theories and frameworks, about the life I built to prove a point, about what I actually have to show for it. Successful career, yes, but no community. No family beyond a daughter who I almost lost. No partner. No one to build a life with. I chose this. Chose ideology over connection. Chose being right over being happy. And now my daughter is choosing differently. She's taking the best of what I taught her. Independence, ambition, self-respect, but adding what I rejected. Partnership, family, community. Building something I was too afraid to attempt. And she's doing it with a man who outmaneuvered me completely. Not through aggression or control, but through simply living his values quietly, refusing to engage with my attacks, going his own way, and in doing so, proving that my framework was incomplete, that you can be strong without being isolated, can be independent while being partnered, can choose traditional elements without being oppressed. He didn't need to argue with me, didn't need to prove me wrong, just lived his life, and showed my daughter an alternative, one that apparently appeals to her more than my path. The realization is crushing and liberating at once. I've been outsmarted by someone who wasn't even trying to compete, beaten at my own game by someone playing an entirely different game, and my daughter is walking away from my legacy, not in rebellion, but in pursuit of something better. Sit there in my empty apartment, with my career success and political correctness, my ideological purity and complete isolation. Wonder if this is what winning looks like. Wonder if I've been confusing rigidity for strength, loneliness for independence. This whole time, pour another glass of wine. Toast to my daughter, who had the wisdom to choose differently, who saw what my feminism cost me, and decided the price was too high. She's building something I couldn't. A life that's fully hers, not in reaction to anything, not trying to prove anything, just living. And I'm here, alone with my principles, wondering when being right stopped feeling like enough.